decision on, thank you, on, sorry, I'm operating with one tiny little laptop today, so my apologies. We are having a hearing today on, apologies, LUR 2022-00021, the current Millennium Harvest House, and proposal is for the standard. All right, hold on, I just got to get back to the visual. Okay. So because it's a special hearing, we will have open comment on any issue other than this particular project. Then we will go directly to the public hearing item. The applicant will have 10 minutes to present their proposed design changes. Then we will have time to ask the applicant questions. Then we will go directly to, there will be no public comment on this proposal because we already had public comment on this proposal. And then we will have a planning board discussion of, I suppose, of the proposed changes. If it looks like there is majority approval for the planned changes, we will ask staff to quickly draft a motion that reflects those changes. If there are other motions or conditions, we will address those as they come up. Just so you all know, if the vote on the motion is tied, since there's only 6 of us today, that in essence is a vote to deny. And then it goes directly to, it'll go to City Council for City Council to determine how it wants to move forward on the project. So I just want you all to be aware that a tie vote is the same as a motion to deny in this situation. Okay, so let's start please with open comments. If Vivian, if you could see if anyone wants to speak to other than the public comment.
I thought I would start and ask the attendees from the public to raise their hand if they plan to speak during public comment. Because if not, then I think we don't need to, or sorry, the open comment rather. So we just have one hand, and that's from Lynn Siegel, who's very familiar with our rules as she attends frequently. So I think we don't need to go through the rules.
All right,
Lynn, please go, and I can.
Let me just double check with Laurel. Do we need to do anything to bypass the reading of the rules?
I would prefer the rules to be read into the record, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, we can read the rules.
Okay.
Okay. And Lynn, I'll call on you after this. Okay. So I will go through the rules, and they're in place to help us achieve a balance between transparency with community members and security that minimizes disruptions. And let me just check that. Oh, great. The slides are pulled up. Thank you, Devin. So we'll start with open comments from community members. And as Sarah mentioned, this is only a time for people to raise issues that are not on the agenda. We want everyone to know that the city is striving into the vision co-created by city staff and community for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. And we would also like the public to know that we have worked with the community to develop these expectations for meetings. And the vision is really designed to promote free conversation and dialogue, while also helping ensure that everyone who participates feels emotionally, physically safe and welcome. We want to ensure we make space for different viewpoints in our meetings because we do believe it leads to more informed decision making. Next slide, please. And we have a lot of information on our website about the Productive Atmospheres vision. We have a number of rules of decorum that are found in the Boulder Revised Code, and we have some general guidelines that are advisory in nature to share with all of our meeting participants. We ask that all remarks and testimony raised tonight be related to city business. We will not allow any participant to make threats or use any other forms of intimidation against any person in this session. Obscenities, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts the meeting or otherwise makes it impossible for us to continue in the moment is prohibited. And we do also ask that participants identify themselves by their first and last name so that we may call on you and we know who is providing input. Next slide. We're using the Zoom webinar format and it allows participants from the public to speak at designated times, but we will not turn on video for community members because of security concerns in this platform. So as I mentioned, we need a full name associated with each person's participation in the meeting. And it looks like not all people have their full name. So if you plan to speak, please change that. You can right click on your name or you can send it to me in the Q&A and I'm happy to change it for you. There's no pre-existing list for signing up. So if you're in the meeting, we welcome you at the appropriate time to raise your hand, which will let us know that you would like to speak. And you can do this by looking at the horizontal menu with 3 clickable items. And if you click on the hand icon, it'll raise a hand next to your name. Next slide. With an expanded menu, you can also get to the raise hand icon by clicking on reactions. And it doesn't look like we have anybody joining by telephone tonight. Great. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the rules. And now we can go to the open comment. And let me just bring up my timer.
Do we have any, but are there any hands up other than Lynn's?
Nope, only Lynn Siegel.
Okay. All right.
So Lynn, you have 3 minutes, please. Actually, Devin, can you either quickly make me the co-host or just allow Lynn to speak?
All right,
Yeah,
Lynn, you're on.
Yeah, I was at Boza today and you would be surprised at me. I didn't have a negative thing to say. I supported this expansion of this old, we bought one of these houses at Hamilton Court in Martin Acres in 1958 when I was in kindergarten. And one of those ones with the cantilever thing and brick next to it. And these guys are adding on to their place and they wanted another 12 feet because of the setback, which I said, yes, go for it, because they're giving a bigger house. Those houses were about 1,600 feet, I guess. I was saying 1,000, but I was thinking back in time and, you know, that 4 people lived in them, you know, but these days, of course, we have much bigger houses. So it's fair's fair. They're getting 2,600 feet once they're done, you know, that's decent. But it was interesting because the thing I really like is that it was not being demolished. And that's such a good thing. And the other thing, larger houses, you know, in a larger house, and this through all your planning process should be kind of foundational, with more people in it. If you can design some kind of a motivation for people to have more, you know, multiple families in a house. This works really well too. If you had like 4 families, say that 2 families are divorced and the kids have to jump between, but if they're in the same house, but they're living separately as individuals, it like works. Or, you know, hopefully it would work, but it could work a lot better. And just having more people means instead of a washer dryer for every bedroom, you know, you can have a washer dryer for 10 people. And, you know, you're not using up all the infrastructure of little rooms. You've got one living room and one, you know, rooms for different things, rooms for themes or for hobbies, and an office room that everyone uses. And then you have so much better use of the space than having all of those big spaces that you can only be in one place at a time for. So the thing that I wanted to say that's negative though is about Frew House. And that is that Frew House was supposed to be built into 95 units. to my understanding, this would be in excess of $50 million or something. And so it isn't a good deal that we got 8 million instead of 3.5 on inclusionary housing. It's a bad deal because 311 walked on the WUI, with seniors and one way out. And that's why,
Lynn, please try to wrap it up.
yeah, that's why they got approved, is that affordable housing. And then it doesn't happen. And it's a termination clause.
Lynn,
Lynn, I'm
thank
gonna
you
have to,
very
I'm gonna have to
much.
cut you
Sorry.
off.
Yeah. I was just stunned it was terminated.
Thank
Lynn.
you, Lynn. There are no other hands raised, Sarah, so I think we can
Okay,
close the open comment.
Thank you. So I'm going to repeat some of what I said here, since Mark joined us a tad bit late, which is understandable. Okay, the way this hearing is going to go is applicant is going to present us some proposed design change. We will then have some time. Applicant will have 10 minutes. We will have time to ask questions of the app, at which point then we will have our discussion. If it appears that there's support for the design changes, staff will quickly draft a motion that reflects the information of the design change. Can make a motion or talk to an emotion or talk separate motions. I mean, we figure that out. And again, a reminder, if the vote on a motion is 3-3 at this point, since there's only 6 of us here, that will be considered a motion to deny, and it'll be sent off to City Council for their decision making on this project. We have scheduled 2 hours for this hearing, in hopes of not having another super long hearing. Many of the questions and comments about this proposal have already been put on the table. We do not need to rehash those same questions. So we are going to try to stick to 2 hours. Hopefully we can get it done even quicker than that. Laura, yes, what is your question?
Just a process question. You said that if we have a 3-3 vote, that's considered a denial. I assume that you mean that if that's the final outcome and we don't have a different proposal that might get approved, right? Like there might be a motion that fails, but then somebody else has a different idea.
Yes, I presume that's right, but I think yes. But why don't
Okay,
we see
thank you.
how we do? Why don't we see how we do first before we start trying to like negotiate a solution to?
I just wanted to make sure that any failed motion was not an automatic denial. So it sounds like that is not the case. And thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. I'm having trouble with my computer. Please hold on 1 minute. Okay, Mark, yes.
So just a point of clarification. If we have a 3-3 vote, I understand that is not considered a motion to approve. Is that by code, and this is probably a question for Laurel, actually a motion to deny? Because a motion to deny is different than planning board having a tie and not reaching a conclusion. So I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, is it okay if I jump in, Chair
Please.
Silver? Yeah. So in our rules of procedure, it says that an affirmative vote of 4 or more board members is required to pass a motion approving any action. Any agenda item requiring a vote of the planning board is denied if it does not receive an affirmative vote of 4 or more. So here, since there's 6, if you split 3-3, then it would be, I don't know, yeah.
Great, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
And Brad, you've appeared as well. Did you want to add something? Oh, and he's gone. Okay, thanks, Brad. Okay, so the applicant, please, Devin, if you can please reveal the applicant's present to us. I don't know who's going to be speaking on their behalf. Okay, lots of people. Okay, it's my understanding that from our agenda setting meeting yesterday, you have 10 minutes, and then we'll have, I'm sure people will have questions. So if you want to start, please do.
Yes, Amy's going to start the presentation and then hopefully we can start our time.
think Kevin's sharing his screen.
SAR, I think you need to mute in the conference room.
Can you hear us?
Great. Well, thank you to planning board and staff who have devoted another evening to discuss this project. On behalf of our entire team, we are grateful for the attention to detail, thorough review, and constructive feedback we have received to date. We appreciate having these 10 minutes to quickly present some programmatic and design changes that we have made in response to our last 2 meetings. I'm going to go quickly through these next 2 slides about our TDM and parking and devote most of the time to architecture. Next slide. So just to reiterate, our TDM plan and parking reduction were based on a lot of data. We have our traffic engineers here to talk about this, but what we wanted to just really reiterate is that for anyone who does choose to have a car, we will sell parking spaces. And our lease requires that the resident and co-signer agree that if they bring a car to Boulder, they either have to park it here or show us evidence of an offsite place, and we will enforce parking. Next slide. Next slide. So just to show you the parking in the area, this was in our package, but it was important to show that there really isn't any on-street parking in all of the neighborhood within a 1,000-foot radius. And we also will be having towing contracts, and there is a parking district to the south of us, which our residents would not be eligible for, as well as we have talked to all of our neighbors who do have privately managed parking lots about our intention to not impact them. Next slide. This is a new slide to show where all of the long-term storage from CU is located. So if residents do choose to bring a car and not buy a parking pass, they can buy a pass at one of these long-term storage parking spaces. Next slide. And for those of folks who decide not to have a car, we have these incentives. CU provides B-Cycle and EcoPass. The new thing that we wanted to show you is that we have been in discussions with Commutify, who will manage the Alternative Transportation Fund. We have also doubled that because we feel that is appropriate for this project. And we are committing to 1 year of management with Commutify. It's similar to what the City of Boulder is doing with their mobility card. And so we just wanted to offer that as we move forward. And I will pass it off to Amy.
So we really appreciate the substantial discussion and feedback that we've heard to date from planning board. We even went back to rewatch the previous planning board, city council hearings, the design advisory board review meetings. And what we heard were 3 main concerns. So one focused on 28th Street being an entry or gateway into the city of Boulder and needing to step down the massing and length of that eastern facade. 2, visually delineate the entry points into the building and wayfinding throughout the site. And 3, increasing the design caliber of material and detailing at a finer scale. In response to these concerns, we've made pretty substantive changes to the design, emphasizing this 28th Street frontage. We've reduced the mass and height at both the northeast and southeast corners, relocated the main entry, created a wayfinding element along 28th Street, introduced additional breaks in massing to help scale down the facade, and incorporated a variation in massing and materiality and additional detail in the materials. So looking at the before and after here, you can really start to see the changes that we've made to the 28th Street elevation. We've stepped the massing back on both the north and south corners and activated these spaces with amenity roof decks. We've relocated the main entry to the project. That helps identify the entry for the project and give this sense of identity. You can go to the next slide, thanks. So you can see the setback in the massing on this northeast corner and having the entry on the northeast corner as a wayfinding device. On the next slide, we see the entry sequence and the previous location, how it was recessed off of the front along 28th Street, and the new location is much more prominent and brings that activity of the resident common areas and leasing and lobby more front of house and focused on 28th. With the ghosted overlay that you see here, you can see the reduction in massing, scaling down the height of this entry and really making it a welcoming beacon. We've introduced corner balconies, which is a similar language that we have elsewhere on the site, to be used as wayfinding portals. And again, with the overlay, you can see that reduction in the setback from 28. Zooming into the scale and materiality, we've focused on introducing the secondary metal panel with a different profile and tone to help group windows and a base of at the building. The setback on the southeast side, you can see, helped reduce the height of the building, and introducing a level of wood materiality on the 4th story helps bring that warmth to the eastern facade. And then also you can see the break in the masonry massing to help scale down the facade. Similar to the middle panel, we've introduced brick detailing to help group between the windows and then also at the base of the building. Again, here you can see the south end reduction in massing and the break in the material and overall massing of this eastern elevation. The ghosted overlay for the reduction in height and scale. So looking at it diagrammatically, you can really see that we're understanding the concern of the unbroken planes and the size of the masses that we had previously. And so we were able to study the extent of having additional subtractions to help scale down the building along 28. And then just looking at additional details and seeing the side-by-side elevations, you can compare the before and after and reduction in the height on both the north and south ends. Having a wayfinding portal entry really brings a sense of presence and entry onto this elevation. Thank you again for letting us take the time to present and reviewing the project. We appreciated the feedback to date, and we'll stay on the call and can provide answers to any questions that might come up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anything, Danica, does anyone else from the applicant want to speak?
Nope, I think we did what we wanted to do. We went as quick as we could. So thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. All right, Devin, can you take, I'll get to you in a second, George. Devin, can you just take down the picture so that we can all be on the, as it can't see everybody. Okay. All right, so we're now going to time for questions with the applicant. George has his hand up, so we'll go to George and then Kurt.
Quick question for the applicant. Was there any, with these changes, was there any reduction in unit count in the project?
There was a reduction of 8 beds to the overall project.
Thanks.
Thanks, George. Kurt and ML.
Thanks. I really appreciate the moving the entryway out closer to 28th Street. I think that makes a lot of sense. I had one question though. It seems like the handicapped access now really is coming from the north side as opposed to the east side. Did you consider moving the handicap parking spaces to that north side to make them closer to that entryway?
Look at the handicap spaces when we were rearranging the entry, and it felt like having presence on that northeast corner, where we were able to locate the staircase and entry so that there's an entry from the north and then also from the east facing 28. So there will be a direct route for stairs coming up from the north and then a ramp that routes from the handicap spaces up to the main entry.
Thank you.
ML.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, SAR folks, for the work and the presentation. So I have a question. In the public areas of the site, and I believe that there are still 2 pathways that go through the project. So can you describe what is the pedestrian experience in those pathways? I think my interest is in the public interaction on the property, given that there's a commercial experience to the north, and then there is the creek to the south, and this is kind of between. Boulder has been used to having full access to this site as a public space. So I'm just curious as to what are those 2 pathways. It seems like one kind of doesn't really go anywhere, it dead ends at the back of a building. But so what is pedestrian experience, the widths, the heights, and what are people seeing and experiencing that aren't students, that are the public coming to the property?
Yeah, I think I'll take this one. Thanks, ML. I think you're mainly referring to the south to north path, right? That's through the property. So total width, building face to building face. I don't know, Amy, if you can help me there on just sort of how big that area is. And I don't know if we can get to a plan.
Oh, thank you.
But generally the experience is that we want it to feel public. And so we have limited to some degree, how many sort of porches or openings we have. We have quite a few openings, but the one area that you see there in sort of the tan color that is raised up a little bit in grade, I believe it's 2 feet above the path elevation. So that is sort of the private realm, and then the public realm is what is the path connecting you to the property to the north. So that path also is meandered intentionally so that bikes will go slow through that area. And then I think we've provided, given that is, I believe it's 40 feet building face to building face. I think we've given quite a bit to landscaping in that zone. So it's a balance, right? It's a balance of providing that public access, but also providing public seating areas. But it is very much intended to be public. There are no fences or anything blocking you from that area. So I think that was the main area. And then of course, in what you're seeing to the south and along the creek are the public paths. All of that will be public, and it ranges from pedestrian.
So did I understand you to say that the width of that pathway is 40 feet?
I'm sorry, but you've, I don't know your name, but you've frozen. So if someone else from the applicant might be able to answer ML's questions.
Yes, so the distance between the buildings is approximately, it ranges from 42 to 46 feet, depending on whether it's a courtyard space or a space from building 1 to 2 or 2 to 3.
Sorry, it was a little, I'm sorry, I don't know who was speaking. And I've made an error, which is you all need to acknowledge your name, speak your names before you speak. So we have that on record. And I don't know who just spoke, but it was very garbled. So if you could repeat your name and repeat what you just said, that would be very helpful.
So I'll see if I can answer the question. I'm
Thank you.
Amy McCann with SAR. The width of the opening between buildings, for the multi-use path from building face to building face is 42 feet for the multi-use path. And then for the pedestrian view between buildings 2 and 3, it's 40 feet.
And how tall is that area?
It's 4 stories.
Feet? How tall is it?
It is just shy of 55 feet, so 49 and a half.
And how would you describe the pedestrian experience? So I heard somebody mentioned seating. What are people seeing? What is the experience? Because it's unclear as to what the public will experience in those two paths. And there's 2 pathways that I understand. One goes through and there's a slot in the buildings, in the commercial buildings that would end at, and the other one, I'm not exactly sure where it goes. Can you talk about both of those?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up some renderings too to help communicate the pedestrian experience. But the intent is that they're well vegetated, and especially the multi-use path, we have most of the amenity program will be along the multi-use path. So there'll be the club room and fitness room and highly activated common spaces for the buildings along that multi-use path. So there'll be a strong indoor-outdoor connection between the program in the building and then the multi-use path.
Those aren't public spaces though, is that correct?
They're not open to the general public. There'll be
Right.
common spaces for the residents of the building.
Right. Oh, okay, so this is, you called one a multi,
Yeah, so if there's 2 walkways that connect north-south across the site, we're referring to one of them as the multi-use path. That's where we have the multi-use path that connects along Boulder Creek and takes you up through the development north of the site. And then the second one is more of a secondary connection that we've called a pedestrian U that is more focused on pedestrian movement through the site, and primarily would be residents, but it would be open to anyone.
where does that mu go? End?
It would take you to Olson Drive, which is the proposed new street along the north edge of the property.
Was that perspective that you showed along the multi-use path, is that the only drawing you have, or the only rendering you have in that area?
For the pedestrian view.
So it is not. I am pulling up the old plans. Our landscape architect is trying to pull up the current perspectives. I'm doing my best to navigate and pull up these plans, which are a little bit old, but Amy, can you help me with these views? So there's other perspectives.
Those are in the private courtyards though, right?
Yes. I think the one I pulled up was the common. And I know I saw a rendering of it yesterday morning. Is there a way we can get that up on the screen?
And
Me or SAR?
One
Can
thing,
you allow?
I'm Cody Gradney with JVA. Hi, everybody. One thing I was going to say is, ML, I think your question was, where are the connections? So I think we actually have the west connection, which is the north-south multi-use path along the western property line. That's 12-foot wide. And that's per the city's transportation and master plan. So that's what that multi-use path is on the west side. And then the one that Amy was talking about that goes through buildings 2 and 3, that's the smaller one that isn't a multi-use path, but we are having public access through it. And that's this one that is up right now, thanks to whoever's showing it. And then we have the third one, which is the multi-use path in between building one and 2. And that's the one that kind of weaves through the courtyard, kind of as Amy was discussing it, and that's 12-foot wide as well. And then we obviously have the 12-foot multi-use path on 28th Street as well. So those are our connections through our site, north-south.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me understand what the pedestrian experience is there on the site. And I have one additional question. Are there any commercial areas on the property?
Yes, so we're retaining the small businesses to the south of the creek. There's currently a daycare and Simba, which is Single Track Mountain Bike Alliance, and the Eldora Lake Racing Team. And so they're in the 2 cottages to the south of the creek. We're keeping those cottages and keeping those businesses. So those would be nonprofit daycare commercial uses. And then in the main floor of the building, we are doing a lot of public facing amenity space. And I believe there's a small commercial space along the multi-use path. Is that correct? Amy, Rob? No. Okay.
I don't think there is.
Okay, I'm sorry. So the commercial is on we're retaining the existing commercial on the site.
Right, on the other side of the creek?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Those are my questions.
All right, ML, thank you. Last opportunity for questions to the applicant, although of course, if something comes up during our discourse, we can always turn back to them. All right, thank you all very much for your 3rd presentation to the board. Much appreciated. We will now, Devin, if you could just make sure it's the board members' boxes that are showing, that would be very helpful. So I can see us. Thank you, thank you. Waiting for. If Devin can't do it all, if you guys who are applicants don't mind turning off your video, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, goodbye. Thank you. But don't go anywhere in case we need to ask you questions. And Danica, if you don't mind turning off your video, that'd be great. Okay. That's just us chickens. Okay, so we've seen the new proposal, the new design proposal. I think it'd be helpful to get everyone's feedback and see where we are in terms of that. Who would like to go first? Nobody? Come on. Okay, Mark.
I'll simply say that I appreciate the applicant's efforts at changing the massing and hearing the concerns. And I went back and I've been going back to the prior meetings, and the common thread to me, what I heard was not parking. It was not open space. It was not these other issues. It was building design, and even those that were in favor of motions to approve had concerns about the building design. And in the subsequent weeks, I've taken some time to just really ponder different buildings and entranceways and roof forms and so forth. And anyway, I think they have done a good job listening to us. I am not above additional conditions regarding the design if people have those, but I appreciate their efforts, and I think major improvements have ensued.
Thank you, Mark. Kurt?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I agree very much with that. I was certainly concerned with especially the 28th Street elevation. And I think that this is a significant improvement. I was starting to work on some kind of condition as a non-architect that would basically end up sort of similar to this, except not nearly as good. And so I appreciate that they were moving in the same direction. I feel like, as I mentioned in my question, I think moving the entrance the main entrance out to 28th or as close to 28th Street as possible helps a lot in terms of providing a street presence, as much of a street presence as we can get, given the flood considerations. And I think the greater articulation of that east elevation really helps. And certainly stepping down, particularly on the south end, which I think was a significant concern among the board. I think that will make Just for a much more attractive building as viewed from 28th Street, from the multi-use path there and so on. So I think it's a significant improvement. I'm sorry to lose a few bedrooms, but I think it's a good trade-off.
Thank you, Kurt. ML?
Thank you, Sarah. So my concern has from the beginning not so much been about the building per se. And I think, like Mark, I've spent the last couple of however many days or weeks it's been kind of pondering why is this project so been so difficult? And I think it's because this project is essentially taking what's historically been a completely public accessible site and amenity as a tennis club, a gathering venue, a hotel, an event center, and it's making it an exclusive luxury student housing project with minor access pathways. I mean, that was my concern with what are these pathways? How do the city of Boulder residents continue to enjoy the site, continue to enjoy a very rare access to a creekside experience, right? There's not a lot of these. There's some at the along the Red Rocks Park area. There's some at Central Park, but this is a creekside experience that has been enjoyed by residents of the city for, publicly accessible. And it's kind of turning that into a private experience in that the building and what are being called the amenity spaces are all for use of the tenants. It's not a public experience insofar as can people get a cup of coffee to enjoy the creek? Is there a way for people to actually engage in activities? I understand that on the south side of the creek, those particular businesses will remain, but they haven't been to public. They haven't provided a public amenity, as it were, like the tennis club, like the Harvest House, and the events of the hotel, albeit it hasn't functioned in its highest capacity of recent years. So what I'm interested at this point is so what is the public experience? How is the site retaining the historical use by the city of Boulder residents to a very prominent creekside experience, and to the role that this site is supposed to play as the BVCP put forth in putting it on the BVRC map and saying this is part of something that has to do with people, places. This is about the public. And so I've been speaking about this BVRC since day one on this project. And as I went back and re-looked at what that was, those are kind of timeless. The design guidelines in that packet are timeless. They may be old, but they're timeless. They're talking about experiences for people. They're talking about making a cohesive whole out of our commercial center. They're talking about creating a there. It is literally the center of Boulder. If you look at the map, that BVRC designated area is the center. And I'm concerned that we're disregarding some long-term planning that has been there since decades. And how is the public? What are we losing? What are we losing by removing an experience to the property and reducing it to a pathway that has stuff you can look at, but it's not nothing you can go into, right? It's the students having their amenities. It's not public. You're going from A to B and going, I didn't ask how long the paths were, having, you know, hundreds of feet, getting through and having an experience. It's like, where is the there there? There has historically been a there on that property, albeit it is lost its gloss, right? No, I don't know what they do at the site anymore, and but it does have a history, and that's been my number one concern from the beginning. Is that we have these intentions, we have a dream, we have visions, we put them on paper, we put them in the Boulder Valley Comp Plan. We intend to give ourselves some guidelines, and then we completely disregard them. So I have to me, this isn't an architectural problem, it's a planning problem, and perhaps a use problem. So I'm not sure what to say about, you know, I appreciate the fact that the architecture team has gone back and tried to understand what is it that's being asked. I have been talking about the zoning and the inferences that the zoning puts and the actual requirements. These aren't, the criteria are not meet them if you can. The criteria are requirements. So I do have some specifics, a specific condition that I could bring forth, but that is the nature of my concern. And I'm not looking for a discussion with the applicant or a justification, or it's a concern I've had since the beginning, and it has more to do with how do we, what attention do we pay to our own regulations? Because I think, and I can go through and cite all the little pieces that I think aren't being attended to, and some very specific ones that should be. But anyway, that's where I'm at.
Thank you, ML. Danica, because that was not a specific question, it was more of a rhetorical question. I'm not gonna call on you. Mark, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question for ML. ML, do you take into account, or do you disagree with the applicant's open space calculations? When I look at the site and I look at the reroute, which I was initially opposed to, but now I've really studied this and come around that the reroute of the Boulder Creek path, moving it farther to the north, closer to the buildings, creating a greater lawn than what is there now. There's a lot of people traverse the creek path and then sit to the south of it near the creek currently, but it's a relatively narrow strip. My question to you is based on the applicant's open space calculations and just the general site design, by moving the path to the north, making it safer for cyclists across the bridge, it creates this much bigger lawn that is quote public space. And I do have a condition drafted to make sure that that would remain public space and be considered public space, although it would be an easement, but to ensure public access. So does that larger lawn and the better access for people going north-south and people going east-west, does that ameliorate any of your concerns, or am I misunderstanding you?
Thank you for being so careful about that lawn, because you have been from day one about that path and it being public, and the conversation that I brought up with the concern with people wanting to move in there and put up tents and that sort of thing, and promptly being reminded this is private space and they will deal with it as private space. So I think that that's still, in my mind, kind of a fuzzy situation. I didn't see anything in the plans or in the discussion about developing that as in other words, a place where people will go, that it will be benches, that there'll be landscaping, that there will be an opportunity for people to actually inhabit it and use it as an environment that is for the residents of Boulder, for people. A lawn is cool, but you can't do a lot of stuff on a lawn. You really do need to articulate experiences that will promote the kinds of activities and engagements that, think about a park. If a park is just a big field, it's different than, say, a park that's got a picnic area and a grove area where there's trees, and an area that maybe's got a little sand lot for base. When you start to pop, this is a planning 101 back, you have this big urban space that nobody uses because it's empty, and then you start putting things in it and people start using it. So that, I didn't see that, but I hear what you're saying, and I think that that could begin to kind of give back to, this is a public space. This is for the citizens of Boulder. We know what we're losing. We're losing a big tennis center. We're losing a place where people could go and enjoy a drink and have dinner and be at the creek and have those experiences. I don't see that in what has been proposed, but I do understand what you're saying, Mark, that to include that as a to kind of begin to address the fact that, yeah, we're used to having that in our public realm.
I'm actually going to take an executive privilege moment, Laura, and then I'll call on you. I want you all to know that I asked staff to draft a motion that reflects the new design components, and think of that as a starting place for further discussion. And what I'd like to do after Laura says whatever she's planning to say is begin to turn our attention to whatever conditions folks might have, and put them on the table, and then see if we can draft up something that just we can draft up something. So staff is going to work on that, and we'll continue our conversation. So Laura, you're next.
I guess I have a question about what are the current uses at the Millennium? Is there a restaurant there? Is there a coffee shop there? I don't recall. I know I've stayed there in the past.
I do, because I go there a fair. It is currently still a hotel. During COVID, it was used for housing. It has fallen on somewhat hard times. A lot of broken windows that have been, not a lot, there's no broken windows that boarded up, but I believe that may still be residents there. But the pool isn't working. The amenities I don't are available any longer. So it's in abeyance essentially, as it was for quite some time, precisely because of COVID, and then this process has taken a while. But I will just say ML's point, which is that this has been prior to COVID, it was still a point of where the public could go and participate, be active public space. But at this point, it is the public space is really the tennis court area, and the summer the two nonprofit organizations are really busy because there's a lot of campers, kid campers that utilize those sort of.
Okay, thank you. I do have some comments if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So I don't think that there are any picnic facilities there now that are open to the public. I could be wrong about that, but my experience with the Millennium passing by on the Creek Path is that there's a tennis center there. I don't play tennis. There's a dome there that looks like it's for private events, but I have not been invited to any of those. And so for me, it is not public space, right? It's someplace I pass by when I'm on the Creek Path. I've been to the Fish Observatory, that's public. If they're adding creek access, that seems like an additional public amenity. If they're adding a dog park and a pickleball court, those seem like additional public amenities beyond what is there now, which some folks may not think is a fair exchange for the tennis courts and the whatever the past historical Friday night club uses were. But I do think that they have accounted for some public amenities. I also note that that Regency Shopping Center to the north has all kinds of opportunities for people to get some takeout. You can get Thai, you can get Indian, you can get ice cream, you can get cakes, you can go to Flower Child, there's a Greek cafe. There's a lot of stuff that you can get in that Regency Shopping Center that's just a few steps away, and carry it down and have a picnic on the lawn if you want. So I think that that space can still function as a public space as it's designed. And I do appreciate the idea that we have to stick to our criteria. And I look at our site review criteria, the old one that this project is coming in under. And the ones that seem to really stand out to me were 9-2-14 H2B Roman numeral 1, which talks about open space providing a balance of private and shared areas for residential uses and common open space that is available for use by both residential and non-residential uses. So that one, I could not in good conscience say they're not meeting that, because I think they have provided a balance of private and shared areas. And then there are the ones that have to do with the building height and mass and scale and orientation being compatible with the existing character of the area or the character established by adopted design guidelines. And ML, I take your point. And by the way, that's 9-2-14H, 2F Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2 in that same section. And ML, I take your point that in the BVCP and in the Boulder Valley Regional Center guidelines, it is this should be a commercial use was the intended guidelines for this area, but I think staff made a strong argument for why this could also be residential as a transitional area. So I don't have a problem with saying that I do think it meets those two site review criteria. So, that's where I'm coming from, and reasonable people can disagree on those things. So I did appreciate the changes that the applicant made, that I thought they were listening to us. I'm not going to repeat the wonderful things that Mark and Kurt noted about how it was responsive to some of our input. As you all know, I voted in favor of approval last time. I intend to vote in favor of approval again. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Laura. All right, so why don't we turn to conditions? I know Mark has something he has a condition that has to do with the public access or public space. I'm not exactly sure. And Mel, you said you might have some conditions as well. So why don't you just articulate them, and we can turn our attention to those.
Sarah, can I suggest a process point here? Can we
course
go
you
ahead
can.
and put a motion on the floor to approve the applicant's project and then discuss conditions one by one and vote on them? And I don't care if we vote on them one by one or vote on them as a package, but I
here's the
think
problem. If we put a motion on the floor and get it seconded, we could just go ahead and vote. But then if it's 3-3, essentially it's a denial.
well, I think that we all, like, once the motion is on the floor and seconded, it belongs to the group and we have the ability to offer conditions as an amendment to the motion. And I think that would be the cleanest process for considering the amendments kind of one by one. And then they either get attached to the motion or not, but we vote separately on each of those conditions to either we approve attaching it to the motion or not. Is that, Laurel, is that consistent with our
I don't
process?
think we would vote, well, Laurel said, I don't think we vote on conditions. We can discuss conditions and then we could vote on amendments, but a condition would be an additional to the motion itself. Whereas
Right,
an
each
amendment-
each condition would be an amendment.
Right,
Like,
so
we would amend the main motion to add Mark's condition. We would amend the main motion to add ML's condition. So I'm just suggesting we go ahead and move to that process rather than discussing each of the conditions and then trying to package it later.
That's
but-
fine by me. That's fine. But I appreciate that, Laura. Laurel? You're muted, just FYI.
Yeah, thanks so much. Laurel Witt with the City Attorney's Office. I realized I introduced myself earlier, so I'm Laurel. Either way works. I think that Laura's process is one of the ways that we do it through Robert's Rules of Order, creating an amendment based on each condition. And I think Chair Silver, your idea was to discuss them before it goes to the amendment process. So either way works.
Okay.
So leave it up to you.
All right. Well, I'm happy to go with Laura's approach. Mark, before I call on you, staff, can you please pull up the motion that you've drafted? Thank you. Hold on, I gotta close this out. Okay. All right. I will make a motion and then ask for a second. I make a motion to approve site and use review application LUR 2022-00021 as amended at the August 8th, 2023 Planning Board meeting and proposed amendment to the BVRC Transportation Connections Plan, adopting the staff memorandum as findings of fact, including the attached analysis of review criteria. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we got lots of seconds. We're all
Everybody
good.
second.
Mark seconded it. Okay, so now we can, it's open for discussion. I would suggest if you have conditions, now would be the time to raise them as an amendment. ML, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a question. When the motion said something about today's meeting, does that mean
Yes.
what
Yes.
the applicant presented at today's meeting is
Yes.
now the project?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, Mark, you're the one who has an already written condition. Why don't you please tell us what it is?
Okay, mine, with the help from staff is a little lengthy, so if I email it to Devin this second, then he can put it on the screen. How does that sound? So, and then I'll read it.
Okay, while you're emailing it, he's putting on the screen. Why don't you start talking about it?
Okay. Actually,
I mean, so we don't know what it's about, Mark, so it'd be helpful
Right.
if you just started
Okay.
talking about it.
it is in regard to, I just sent it to Devin. It is in regard to the concerns that have been voiced by me and ML and others regarding the open space designation that the applicant has put on there and the kind of conundrum confronted by public easements on private property, etc. So while I will start reading it, but I think that, well, anyway, I'm happy to start reading it since that's part of the process. And then Devin can put it on the screen when it is available. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I move to amend the motion that's on the floor with the following condition. In addition, the following conditions will also be part of the site review approval. Before a building permit application, the applicant shall submit and obtain city manager approval of a technical document review application for the following items. A revise, and if staff is following along, this is not your exact wording. So don't be alarmed. I did my editing. This is my motion. A revised written statement that describes the management, programming, and hours of operation for quote, public and quote, semi-public spaces that include public rights of way and access easements that are shaded in yellow and described as quote, public space on the site plan on page 135 of 160, Part A of the July 11th, 2023 Planning Board packet. Public spaces such as the Boulder Creek path and the lawn to the south of the path and access between the building for traversing from the path to the shopping center to the north shall be open to the public to traverse at all times unless the property owner and the city agree in writing to a temporary closure. Semi-public spaces will allow, I've got a little typo here, will remain open to the residents and visitors at reasonable hours. Reasonable times include the times that comparable city facilities or parks are typically open. Limitations of access may be placed on active programmed recreational uses such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park. Access may be limited when required because of misuse of the area for the protection of the residents and visitors or other public safety purposes or maintenance activities. End of condition. Is there a second for?
Can we just, Laurel just popped up. Laurel, what did you want to say? And then we'll come back to you, Mark.
Yeah, apologies. I just wanted to clarify. So the very beginning when it talks about before a building permit application, the applicant shall submit and review that language is what's in the current conditions. So just wanted to clarify that Mark is adding this section to like a subsection of other things that have to be given a technical review. So just wanted to clarify that that's why that language is in there.
And Laurel, can it be an amendment to the motion?
Are you asking
I'm asking.
can this be an amendment? Yeah.
Okay.
So Mark Offered it as an amendment to the motion. Yep.
Okay.
So he'll need a second and then we'll vote on this particular
but I, as
amendment
the
and
motion-
then.
wait. As the motion maker, can accept or reject, right?
So you as the motion maker had a second and then now that motion, the original motion is up to the board. So it's the board's motion.
Okay, great.
So now Mark comes in and gives this motion. So in order for it to be adopted, somebody has to second and then you vote on whether it's going to be included in the
Okay,
original motion.
And before I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to understand. So it gets seconded and then we vote on the amendment, but not on the full motion.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So then we have,
And
The
I
other
just
thing-
wanna note that
Okay.
typically it would be, I have moved to amend your motion. So you had the original motion, I moved to amend. And if I receive a second, then we would debate and then vote on the amendment and whether or not to include the amendment in the original motion.
okay.
Right.
So before ML, if you're going to second, then but you have your hand up, but I think we don't want to discuss until we've either had a second or not a second.
I would like to second this.
I was looking for a clarification because he refers to drawings and I don't see the drawings.
The,
The other thing that we might want to clarify too is it says semi-public, which isn't a defined term in the application materials.
so, but that, Laurel, that was your, semi-public was your language. So before we debate, so can we note that Kurt has seconded this and then we can begin to parse it?
Yes, unless there's a friendly amendment, unless somebody wants to offer.
Okay, so I've moved, Kurt has seconded. So I'd like to speak to my motion to amend. So Laura, I'm a little confused. Even though I did not take all of your wording and I did make some substantive changes, the semi-public spaces, that definition, well, that was itemed as, for example, pickleball courts, fenced dog park. Did you provide a definition of semi-public spaces when you sent that, or how? What
The
did
language
you-
I had didn't have semi-public in it, but we could define it as,
Wait, I'm
it was a
sorry.
part of your like, oh, sorry, of the language that I sent earlier today.
Yes, yeah, it was part of the language you sent earlier today. That's where that was found.
So Mark, she's saying that it's not language that's defined. So is there some other word we can use? Let's try to
So-
move it along.
Or we could define it too. Semi-public is a space that's not burdened by an easement. So that section
Oh,
of public space.
okay, I got you. Okay, there we go, fine. Then does this require a friendly amendment, or does this require an amendment to amend? A motion to amend this amendment?
How about we just change the language and then reread the motion and second the
All right.
be revised, please, instead of trying to amend to amend to amend. So
Okay.
Devin, if you could please work with Mark. Mark, if you can read out what you need to
Okay.
have changed.
And I'll appreciate any.
Can I make a suggestion, Mark?
Yes, please.
Instead of trying to talk about public spaces and semi-public spaces, I would leave the paragraph about public spaces such as the Boulder Creek Path and the lawn to the south. I'd leave that alone. And this one, I would just say, instead of saying semi-public spaces, just use your language that you use later on, saying active programmed recreational uses will remain open, such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park will remain open to the residents and visitors at reasonable times, right? You're just saying active programmed recreational uses instead of saying semi-public spaces.
So we would strike from semi-public and just,
I would strike semi-public spaces will allow. I would go ahead and strike that.
yeah,
And
okay.
I would move up your language of active programmed recreational uses such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park. Move that up to start the sentence with that. Yep, go cut and paste it. Active program recreational uses such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park. You can delete spaces and will allow. Will remain open to residents and visitors at reasonable times. Reasonable times include yada yada. Limitations of access may be placed on these active programmed recreational uses.
Well, I think that's a thing of beauty. Thank you very much. I'm deeply appreciative for that edit.
Thank you, thank you. I would take a bow, but I'm sitting down.
Okay,
Thanks.
Um,
So Laurel, do we have to reread this motion and second it again, or can we go forward and have discussion on it?
I would recommend reading it again, so it's in the record and having a second.
Okay, Mark,
Sorry
would
to make you do that again.
Your motion.
it's okay. In addition, the following conditions will also be part of the site review approval. Before a building permit application, the applicant shall submit and obtain city manager approval of a technical document review application for the following items. A revised written statement that describes the management, programming, and hours of operation for public and semi-public spaces that include public rights of way and access easements that are shown in yellow and described as, quote, public space on the site plan on page 135 of 160, Part A of the July 11th, 2023 Planning Board packet. Public spaces such as the Boulder Creek Path and the lawn to the south of the path and access between the buildings for traversing from the path to the shopping center to the north shall be open to the public to traverse at all times unless the property owner and the city agree in writing to a temporary closure. Active programmed recreational uses such as pickleball courts and fenced dog park will remain open to the residents and visitors at reasonable times. Reasonable times include the times that comparable city facilities or parks are typically open. Limitations of access may be placed on active, programmed recreational uses such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park. Access may be limited when required because of misuse of the area for protection of the residents and visitors, other public safety purposes, or maintenance activities.
We have a second. Kurt, do you want to second it?
No, I want to propose a friendly amendment,
Alrighty,
Does it
which
need-
is to remove and semi-public from the second paragraph, since that is no longer a term that's used.
I concur with that.
Okay, then I will second.
Evan, can you remove the and semi-public? Perfect. The and also, yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, now we can discuss.
Okay, I'll simply say that as the motion maker, that this is a combination of my initial language from our prior continued meeting with some language from staff that I've rearranged, and they're probably, I don't know if they're cringing or what, but what this is trying to address is first that this allows for staff and the applicant to reach an agreement of a technical document, which will have more detail and be more legally correct and enforceable than this particular motion. But it does try to create the protection for the public spaces and direct staff to create that technical document so that we can all rest assured that the spaces noted as public will remain as public now into the future.
Thank you. Laura and then ML.
In keeping with our procedures, that any amendment has to correspond to a criterion that we think is not met unless we have this amendment, unless we have this condition. I do think that Mark's amendment is consistent with 9-2-14 H2B Roman numeral 1 that talks about providing for the balance of private and shared areas for residential uses and common open space that is available for use by both residential and non-residential uses. I think what Mark is trying to do here is just make sure that that balance is maintained into the future. And so I do find this to be consistent and a good assurance that this condition that this provision of site review will continue to be met. So I am supportive.
ML.
So when I sought advice on how to address the concerns that I was having, I'm not sure where this would sit, Mark, if it would be a amendment, a friendly amendment to your proposed amendment. But what I'm interested in is also one of the criteria, which is criteria H2FD, which talks about projects and their human scale, and especially at the pedestrian experience. I can read what that says. It says projects are designed to human scale and promote the safe and vibrant pedestrian experience through the location of building frontages along public streets, plazas, sidewalks, and paths, and through the use of building elements, design details, and landscape materials that include without limitation the location of entrances and windows and the creation of transparency and activity at the pedestrian level. That criteria is the one that I was looking for compliance with when I asked about the public pathways, especially with regard to transparency and activity at the pedestrian level. So Laurel, I don't know if can a criteria be required as a condition? Can meeting a criteria be required as a condition, or should it be met I don't, Mark?
No,
And
no, Mark,
I-
Mark, Mark, let the lawyer answer that question, please. Laurel? Wherever you are, thank you.
Apologies, ML, can you restate your question?
My question is, can the requirement to meet a site use criteria become a condition?
So I guess it depends on if we add it as a condition here. I think it again, it kind of depends on what you're trying to achieve. So if we're trying to have a site review criteria be met, it is required by the code that they meet that criteria. Staff has laid out in their memo about how they meet each of the required criteria that apply. If you think they don't meet the criteria, then we can add a condition that changes or have them do X, Y, and Z things to meet that criteria. But they do have to meet the site review criteria, according to what you all believe, the planning board believes, in order to be able to move this application along. Does that make sense?
It does. And I guess I don't see it meeting this criteria as it stands. So I'm kind of wondering how we could make that kind of appointed. I like the idea that this is what Mark is putting out there as part of the technical document review application, which gives it a fine-tooth comb. But and the creation of transparency and activity at the pedestrian level. Human scale. A pathway that is 42 feet wide and 45 feet tall. I don't know how long it is. I don't know that anybody could consider that a human scale. So I don't know how to get that criteria to be met almost in a literal way. It's just like put a little person in there and let's see. How do we do that? And I don't know, Mark, maybe you don't want it onto your motion to.
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna back the reins from ML. I actually think that if you feel this doesn't meet a criteria that you think is very important, then the answer for you is to vote down the motion when we get to voting down the full motion, because what you're asking would require significant changes that the applicant has not made, despite you bringing up the human scale, I think in every meeting we've had on this project. So unless you have specific suggestions, the way Mark has had specific suggestions about how they can meet the criteria, what would allow them to meet the criteria in your estimation, your evaluation and analysis. I don't think that a generic amendment to say you don't meet, you know, code XYZ and you have to is not adequate guidance based on the code. So that would be my take on this, and I'm sorry that it kind of puts you in the position of having to vote, you know,
No,
not have a way to
Yeah.
accommodate what you want to accommodate, but I think that's kind of where we are.
I reached out and this was the advice I got. So Laurel, do you have something that I missed?
No, I would agree with Sarah, actually. So in order to move this application along, it has to meet all the site review criteria. If you believe that an amendment a condition couldn't change the application in such a way that it would meet the criteria, then yes, voting no would be the appropriate next step. So I was just going to support Sarah in what she was saying.
Okay, I did reach out and ask you, and I thought your answer was to propose that it meet that criteria as a condition. But I'm hearing you say.
So you
that
can
would be a double
propose a
negative.
condition. Yeah. So you can propose a condition that you think may help this application get to all the site review criteria.
Right, and I thought that the condition that we had spoken about was to meet that particular criteria, but you're saying.
No, but so ML, it would be something like you propose a condition that where there are pedestrian paths, the height of the building can only be X, so that the height and width are your estimation more human scale. Like that would be a condition
Right.
that would then be a solution, your solution to the problem that you've identified in terms of meeting criteria.
I
I'm
hear
not
what-
saying that's,
I hear what you're saying. I misunderstood what Laurel had responded to in my question, last week when I said, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. How would I do that? And it was like, make this criteria a condition. And I'm like, oh, that's easy. But that's not the answer. Apparently we can't do that. So thank you for clarifying. And Mark, there is no friendly amendment on the table at this point because I'm not exactly sure where to go with this.
So,
so if I could, I'm sorry, Mark, let me just, I just want to bring us back to the amendment that's on the table. Is there anyone who wants to speak against the amendment? Because I kind of would like to move this along, and so if there's anyone who wants to speak against the amendment, raise your hand. Mark, you want to speak against your own amendment? No, okay. All right, so it seems to me that we can go ahead and take a vote on this amendment because nobody wants to speak against it. Kurt, are you going to suggest a change or did you just want to comment?
I just have a quick question about the proposed amendment. I just want to confirm with Laurel. Laurel mentioned that the public spaces as referred to here are those with public access easement. Does the lawn, the proposed lawn, have a public access easement?
Yeah, I'm actually going to refer to Shannon if it's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
She's telling me it does not, but I don't know if she wants to speak to that at all. She's a little bit more of an expert on this specific areas where the easements go.
I mean, really the thrust of my question is, do you feel that this as phrased or as framed, this is clear and enforceable?
So the what I'm hearing is the public spaces are defined on the plan as both easements and non-easements area. There's a couple of drawings that show in the written statement like where the different public spaces are and where they overlay with the easements. But this language as written is clear and enforceable.
I can make a slight wording change suggestion that might make it clearer. I know that means we'd have to read it again, but I think you could take.
So go ahead.
I think you could take that phrase, including public rights of way and access easements, take it out of that sentence there in the middle and move it to the end so that you just say you're asking for a written statement that describes the management programming and hours of operation for the public spaces that are shaded in yellow and described on the site plan, including public rights of ways and access easements, so that public rights of way and access easements doesn't encompass everything that's shaded in yellow, but it is included in what is shaded in yellow. I think that might make it clearer. I don't know. Kurt, it seems like your concern was that it might seem that public rights of way and access easements are the only thing that you're concerned about, and you're actually concerned about everything shaded in yellow.
No, my concern was that, and I may have misunderstood Laurel. I thought Laurel was saying that all of the things that are framed here in paragraph 3 as public spaces have associated access easements, but that is not true of the lawn. But I'm satisfied if she feels that this is clear and enforceable from the legal standpoint, and so I'm actually fine with it as it stands.
Then I withdraw my suggestion.
Okay, Mark, are you going to make another comment or do you just want to reread?
One more super quick comment that Kurt's concern with the law, that's why my wording addresses the lawn to the south of the path. And so I simply would defer to staff to make sure that when they draft their technical document, that the lawn, the path and the lawn to the south to the creek bank is included in their document.
All right, thank you, Mark. Do you want to restate your motion and then we can vote on your amendment?
Okay, so prior to the vote, here we go. In addition, the following conditions will also be part of the site review approval. Before a building permit application, the applicant shall submit and obtain city manager approval of a technical document review application for the following items. A revised written statement that describes the management, programming, and hours of operation for public spaces that include public rights of way and access easements that are shaded in yellow and described as public space on the site plan on page 135 of 160 Part A of the July 11, 2023 Planning Board packet. Public spaces such as the Boulder Creek Path and the lawn to the south of the path and access between the buildings for traversing from the path to the shopping center to the north shall be open to the public to traverse at all times unless the property owner and the city agree in writing to a temporary closure. Active programmed recreational uses such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park will remain open to the residents and visitors at reasonable times. Reasonable times include the times that comparable city facilities or parks are typically open. Limitations of access may be placed on active programmed recreational uses such as pickleball courts and the fenced dog park. Access may be limited when required because of misuse of the area for the protection of the residents and visitors, other public safety purposes, or maintenance activities.
All right, we'll take a vote. Laura? You have to speak.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mark,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
ML,
Yes.
and Sarah is a yes. Okay, all right. Are there any other amendments or conditions to be proposed?
To
All
the
right.
original amendments or conditions to the original motion.
Thank you for that clarification, Mark. All right, Laura.
I just wanted to speak to ML's concerns and say, ML, I think that you have one other option besides denial, which is if, again, if there's some tweak that you wanted to propose that would make the project meet this condition of having a safe and vibrant pedestrian experience, you could add something like, I want to see more benches or more picnic tables or a glassed in cafe on the ground floor. Like any of those are fairly small tweaks that would be consistent with other kinds of changes that might be conditioned at site review. And so if that's something that you wanted to propose as a separate motion to amend, I think that you have that option. If you think that that would help the project meet that condition of F Roman numeral 5.
Thank you for trying to figure out how to, I'm not one to micromanage someone else's design. I just recognize, that's my line of questioning, that, this does not meet that. And I am completely befuddled that staff believes that it has, and that we've gotten to this place around that. I don't get it. But I'm not going to try to micromanage the design at this point. I think that plenty of people have spoken in about it. And I think adding some balconies and changing some glass does not change the fact that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 very tall buildings and some articulation, but the scale is not human scale. And I think the pedestrian experience is going to be not what our vision and our codes and our goals propose. We've done everything, right? DAB has weighed in. The planning board has weighed in, and yet it continues to move forward. So I don't think that my trying to say, hey, hello, please, let's have this be a really awesome public experience is really going to change the project at this point. So thank you, Laura, for trying. I will step aside. Thank you.
Thank you, ML. Okay, so no more conditions to be on. Mark?
I need to ask ML a question. And this kind of goes to the heart of the matter.
I'm sorry, I'm
Does,
sorry, Mark, we do have a full motion on the table is, I don't know if you're trying to add, I don't know if you're trying to convince ML to vote one way or the other, or whether you're trying to help her craft the condition, but like, I'm not really sure what is your goal?
well, I was just trying to get those words out. So I'll make my question to ML. The question to ML is, earlier today, I had drafted conditions addressing the portions of the site review that you were referring to. And my question is, do you plan on voting for the original motion without any modification based on 9-2-14, anyway, ends in little Roman numeral 5, or is some condition required for your approval?
You know, Mark, I am weighing the impact of the amendment that we just approved, because I think that goes a long way to reminding us that this project has a very public base, and we need to protect that. And so the question I'm asking myself is, what else can be done to protect that public area? And given that we've got a 55, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 55-foot tall buildings, masses on the site. I think it's a critical point, but I'm not, do you have an idea? You said you were looking at possible conditions. I'd love to hear it.
Fine, I'm going to send it to Devin. And this is, I had decided not to propose these conditions. Well, let me ask the board, is there anyone else that has design conditions that address ML's concerns that are written and ready to go? Anyone else?
Mark, thank you so much for managing the meeting. Really appreciate it. I already did ask that question. I think you've put a question to ML and she has told you that she's thinking it through.
I would like to hear what Mark's condition might be.
Fine, then Mark, introduce your conditions. You don't need to ask everyone if I've already asked them. So you seem to be the only one who has them. So please go ahead.
I just sent it to Devin and he can put it on the screen. It is not quite as fully formed as
as it might be. But I appreciate it. It's better than the unfully formed one that I have in my brain. Thank you, Mark.
And so this is a separate condition we've already approved. Just want everyone to know, this is some draft language. This is not, no one's made this as a motion. And so I'll just address this quickly. Prior to the changes in the design that the applicant submitted yesterday or whenever, or I finally got back from traveling and was able to really look at, I had been considering conditions that would generally address what the board had, the board's concerns regarding building design, massing, etc. I'm not a design professional. ML is the only one here that's a design professional, and consequently, there was an attempt to go between what was a deficiency, a perceived deficiency in 9-2-14-2F5, and telling the applicant what to do versus telling them, hey, thank you, you're doing a good job. You made these improvements. You need to make some continued improvements. So This is what I drafted.
Mhm,
I am not submitting this as a motion. If you want to,
mhm,
if this speaks to you, you
mhm,
go ahead, someone else. But
mhm,
this is an example of what
mhm.
addressing your concern would
Mhm.
look like as a condition to be made as an amendment to the original motion.
I would like to, I would like to propose an amendment.
Can I ask a question of staff first? My question for staff is, would these conditions, as Mark has drafted and ML may be about to propose, do these give enough definition that you could work with the applicant and fulfill these as conditions of site review? Are these specific enough for you?
I'm happy to speak up on this. As they are currently drafted, that doesn't give us exact direction in order to
Right.
fulfill the condition. In other words, if it's put forward as a condition to
Mhm, mhm,
make continued improvements,
mhm,
that's a very discretionary comment.
mhm,
At a minimum, you'd say to the satisfaction of city staff or something like that, which I'm not
Mhm.
sure the board's willing to concede that level of discernment to staff. It would be better to articulate specific items
mhm.
and see if the applicant's willing to work on that and consider it for another hearing. But you're asked to vote on a specific application that's in front of you with potentially, discrete and definable amendments as you might submit them.
Thank you, Brad. I think I'm understanding. Mark, I appreciate, I would like, now, I know this isn't, I don't have access to this particular information. What I am going to articulate here is, and I'm understanding we can't just say continued improvements to the design because that's too broad, but I think increased engagement of pedestrians by creating seating areas, transparency and activity at the pedestrian level. Are you writing this down, Devin? Are you amending this?
Yeah, I'm taking notes, thanks.
Should
Because I think that the things that, should I go ahead and
she could
type
write
it
it
up?
out?
Yeah, maybe I'll just type it up.
Yeah, if I can just offer maybe if there were to be a brief recess and you could articulate that specifically.
Right.
Again, I would encourage you not to use kind of qualitative intent statements like improve the pedestrian access. That's not actionable by us.
Right.
But if you were to say, add a sidewalk between point A and point B that's 4 feet in length, that's an actionable type of thing. So be happy to look at anything that might get drafted, but do keep in mind that it needs to be something that can be completed or achieved, and therefore, as a condition of approval, make the approval whole, if that makes sense.
Do you have something that would add to ML's work while we go on a 5-minute break?
Yes, just in reference to defining the fourth floor better, in the proposed renderings that we got for this meeting, there's I don't know what you call it, but it's a definition line sort of the parapet that's seen on the east elevation. And so far as I can tell, that is not continued around the building. But one thing that might help with that to meet that goal is to continue that definition line all the way around the buildings. The other thing is also, as shown in the new renderings, there's different materiality for the first floor, which I think also relates to the pedestrian experience. So you might want to include both of those.
Yeah, Kurt, my concern is human scale and the pedestrian. I don't know if anybody is aware of this, but most of us, as we're walking through a space, we don't have much of a sense of what's going on up on the fourth floor or fifth floor or up there. That isn't, that would be the people off site, that would be the cars, that would be somebody off site. Those are unrealistic experiences. Elevations are unrealistic experiences. We never experience a building that way. We experience it with our senses at the person scale. I'm going to try to craft some language. So how long is our break going to be, Sarah?
We're going to take a 5-minute break. Laura, if
Right.
you don't mind, we'll come back to you. We'll come
Thank
back to
you.
after the
I
break.
just wanted to say, if ML is going to change that condition number 3 about setting off the 4th floor of the and talking about the top of the building, I would specify the number of the building that you're talking about and the elevation, unless you mean all buildings and all elevations. That was my comment. If you're going to do that, you might not be going to do that.
I'm taking the first sentences, following condition to address deficiencies in meeting, and then I'm crafting the specifics. I'm not going to use those 3 elements, but I think that it gave me the starting point.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you. I'm going to put my timer on.
Never see.
We have an open mic on SAR Architects. Thanks.
All right, everybody, please come back so we can keep moving this forward. While ML is still typing, Brad, I see that you have made yourself present, your presence known. Is there something that you want to share with us before ML makes her condition or proposes her condition?
No, not beforehand, but I do want to just be available to comment on any proposed amendments for our ability to administer it. So if I can be at the ready for you all in that regard, please.
Thank you, Brad. All right, ML, you're muted. Could you unmute yourself? And if your draft is ready, to both text it to Devin and then read it to us.
Why, how do I get it to Devin?
Just put it in the chat.
Okay.
I'm still seeing Devin's screen. Are other people seeing Devin's screen?
No.
Oh, interesting.
So here, let me see. There goes the start of it. It talks, well, Brad, if you can look at that and give some input, I will read it. I move to amend the motion to include the following conditions to address deficiencies in meeting 9-2-14 H2FV. Increase engagement of pedestrians in the public spaces with seating areas, including covered spaces and treed landscaping. Create transparency of building to break up long walls. That's as far as I have gotten. Brad, are any of those something that you guys can work with? Do you have additional language that would make sense?
Yeah, thank you, board member. Rebels, it is our job to support the planning board's will. So we're happy to try to take these things forward, but kind of the general comment of increasing seating areas and creating transparency and breaking up long walls. There are many different ways that both the applicant could interpret that, and we as staff, if your intention was for us to make a final call on whether this condition is being met, I think we would be uncomfortable to try to make a final call on something that's that generalized, as opposed to, again, something specific like add a break every 3 feet or something more specific like that. I think, there's probably going to be a tipping point in design where we're back into redesign. And that is probably not something that can be resolved at a dais, in my experience. And of course, it's up to the board to decide whether to continue this conversation on design or not, in a hearing process. I think the applicant has made it clear that they're hoping for a final decision tonight. And many of you on the board have expressed that. But we would not be able to make a reasonable determination based on that language.
Mel, what are you thinking?
I am thinking that to articulate how often seating spaces should be included, how many covered areas, where treated. I mean, that's a design. I'm only talking about the public spaces. I'm not talking about building changes. I'm talking about the public spaces as Mark articulated. What's yellow on that plan. Those are my areas of concern, are that they have an pedestrian engagement, and I'm hearing staff say, Brad, that needs specificity, something like form-based code would give. But I don't think that that's You know, I'm surprised we've gotten to this point and the architects haven't stepped up and designed pedestrian friendly spaces. So I can let it go. Thank you,
Okay.
Laura, for suggesting, and thank you, Mark, for bringing it forward. I don't see a way out without designing the public spaces. And that isn't my role on planning board.
Thank you, ML. I really appreciate that and the time you put in to try to draft something that you could be comfortable with. All right, so does someone have, are there any other conditions? If not, I'm not saying people can't, but if we don't have any other conditions, we're going to go back to the full motion and we will vote on the full motion, including the amendment. All right, Devin, can you please pull up the entire motion with the amendment, please? Laurel, yes.
Apologies, just before we get a little bit further, we have a couple of small tweaks we need to make to
Oh,
the
right. Sorry,
standard
we do.
conditions. No, that's okay. So we just wanted to present those to you. And I don't know if now is a good time or.
Those are tweaks to the motion. Is that what you're
Right,
saying?
so there
Okay,
are
so-
changes to the recommended language from staff recommended conditions to include the materials that were presented today or on August 3rd by the applicant. So just a few little language changes we need to make to the actual
Okay, so I'm sorry,
conditions.
are these language changes you are making to the motion, or are these language changes you are making to the material that staff prepared?
So it's to the material that staff prepared, but it would need to be an amendment.
Okay,
Because,
got it.
yeah, because you're
So
adopting
you-
that,
All
those
right, so you need-
conditions. Mhm.
So you need to give us the language so that we can make that an amendment, please.
Right. So I think Shannon should be sharing those.
I see a white page.
Apologies, sorry to slow down the process just a little bit. We
It's
just want to
okay.
make
No,
sure
no,
that
no.
these,
It's okay,
Yeah.
but it's fine. We are not seeing anything, just so you know, Laurel.
Mhm.
Thank you, Shannon. Oh, boy. So how do we do this, Laurel? Do I read the whole thing or like, what am I doing?
Yeah, so what I was thinking we could do is just walk through and just show you what all the different changes are for your guys' consideration, and then we can have a motion to amend the motion, the main motion to say that we're adopting these changes, these language changes. And I can help with that motion language. And I don't know, Shannon, do you want me to go through this or would you prefer to go through it?
I can go through it real quick. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm Shannon Moeller with the Planning Department. I'll go through these real briefly here with you. So these are the conditions of approval we originally recommended with changes identified in red. As you can see here, we have added a reference to the supplemental materials that the applicant provided. That was that attachment that modified the design. So we have added that into the condition and referred to that as the supplemental materials. And so we've just added that throughout in terms of the final architectural plans as modified by the supplemental materials, the site plan modified by the supplemental materials. Further down, this is the condition that was discussed tonight. And then we have at the very end for the use review, same thing as modified by the supplemental materials. So that was it.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Laurel, so what I'm doing is reading, since I made the motion originally, I'm reading the motion, and with the as amended, that reflects all of the changes that Shannon just read. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then at the very end, if it's okay, just adding this language and I'll put it in the chat so you can see it. So we're gonna do what's called adoption by reference. So say the motion and then including the amendments proposed by staff to incorporate the supplemental materials into the conditions of approval. So I'll send this over to Shannon.
I'm sorry, can Shannon just type it into the suggested motion language?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Shannon, I'll just send you this language to just add into the last sentence, if that's okay. Yeah, if you could just add that in at the last little part, and then that would be great. Apologies for slowing that down a little bit.
That's okay. I'm sorry. So is it going to be added to this first paragraph, or is it going to be something I have to put onto somewhere else in the material?
It'll be added to the first paragraph unless Shannon says it.
Okay, you tell me where to put it.
Right there. Just
This
add
right
whatever
here?
needs to be added right
Yeah.
there. Yes, please.
This is it. All right, let me just,
Okay.
this in. Okay. Right here?
Okay. All right.
Yes, that should be the motion. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your indulgence.
All right. So we now have to second this motion again because it's a new motion. Is that correct? Laurel, don't go away.
Apologies, I didn't mean to disappear. Since you guys adopted this original motion language, this is just like a minor amendment. So I would read it and then vote on it. It's okay if you don't second this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. At last. Making a motion to approve site and use review application LUR 2022-00021 as amended at the August 8th, 2023 Planning Board meeting, and the proposed amendment to the BVRC Transportation Connections Plan, adopting the staff memorandum as findings of fact, including the attached analysis of review criteria, including the amendments proposed by staff to incorporate the supplemental materials into the conditions of approval. We're now going to have a voice vote. Kurt,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
George,
No.
ML. Oh, ML, we lost you. ML, come back.
You're so muted.
You're muted, ML.
I had a cat emergency. I had to go rescue a cat from outdoors. What did I miss?
You're voting on the final motion. It's now three ayes, 1 nay. You're next, and then me.
Is there? It includes Mark's, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. I have a question for Laurel. Can I vote and note my concern about that criteria?
Yeah, so since you talked about it on the record in the discussion period, all of that is on the record. The concerns about the criteria, all of that is already on the record. So you can vote, and then you can also vote or say it after the vote as well.
So I vote, and then after the vote is done, any additional comments?
You can do
Is
it
that
that
what
way.
you're saying? Or do it all right now?
You can do it all right now too. So whenever you feel like it, but just so you know, all the previous discussion is on the record as well.
Okay, so I vote yes with this huge qualifier that I do not believe that this project has met criteria 9214 H2FD and others that reference the human scale. However, I think that the project has gone through so much that I am not going to stand in the way. I hope that the architects are listening and will do something to fix that as they move forward and create a human scale experience in the public areas. I think the city of Boulder deserves that.
Thank you. And I vote no. It passes 4-2. Thank you very much, applicants. Very glad that this project is behind us and you all can move on to city council. All right, that is over. Do we have any matters? Charles?
Nothing from staff this evening, Brad, unless you had anything?
Sorry, slow on the buttons. Nothing from me. Thank you.
All right, anything from any members of the board? All right. Yes, ML.
Thank you, Sarah. I sent out everybody the information about the ice challenge for the Perceive House. And I don't know, you may or may not have heard me talk about the probably one of the highest building standards available out there right now. It's for commercial and residential. And they're doing what they do around the country. They're doing it in Louisville, which is they build a little structure according to the highest code. And then they build a little structure according to perceived house standards. And they put this, I don't know how, I can't remember, 2,000 pounds of ice in it. And it sits in each of these little buildings for, I think it's a month. And Friday in Louisville, at the Louisville Fair at 5 o'clock, they're opening them up to see what percent of ice is remaining in each, which speaks to then how, what the capacity of the building is to mitigate its climate. So it's always an exciting moment, and it's very cool that it's happening here. And if anybody is around Friday evening at the Louisville Fair.
Thank you, ML. All right, I am going to wrap up this, adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much, and we'll be right back here a week from now.
Have a good night, y'all.
Have a good night.
Good night.